Hey guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. My nickname is iFacePalm, and in this episode we're going to take a closer look at the tank that goes by the nickname the Doom Turtle. And yes, it is of course the American super heavy tank destroyer, the T95. And during this tank review we'll be looking into whether if it's worth grinding for and picking up from the tech tree, how its tank statistics looks. I will of course compare stats against a few other tank destroyers, and this will be followed up with an extensive armor profile rundown with focus on its weak spots and strengths. And afterwards I'll take you guys alongside two very recent battles which hopefully will give you guys a good idea of this Doom Turtle in action. And finally I'll finish up with a quick sum up and my rating of this tank destroyer. Okay guys, let's get started. So what is the T95 all about? And for a tank destroyer that has a top speed of 20 kilometers an hour, then of course the interesting question becomes, is it any good? And maybe the even more crazy question to ask would be, can a tank that is this extremely sluggish and slow and without a turret be any fun at all? Well, the thing is that back in the days, if you asked me this exact question, then it would definitely be a no. But a lot of things have changed since then. Originally, this tank had a top speed of 13 kilometers an hour. Yes, and it was way before the equipment 2.0 changes were implemented to the game. I remember very clearly that back in the day, it was not very uncommon to never encounter an enemy tank for the whole battle, in those scenarios where your team completely outskilled the opponent team, and therefore eliminating the enemies way faster than you are capable to spot them. The good thing is that luckily today you have so many more options to specialize this Doom Turtle to match your preferred playstyle, and especially now with the latest field modification being introduced to the game. As you guys already know, I am not a slow tank player. I'm all about gun handling and mobility, and this tank is definitely not fast. But you guys also know that I love to specialize a vehicle. So the question of course becomes, is it any good? And maybe most importantly, can a tank this slow be any fun at all? Well, let's take a deeper look by doing a quick stats rundown with my current crew and tank setup. For the crew, I have chosen to specialize in brothers in arms, repair skills, camouflage, view range, and some gun handling. So nothing out of the ordinary. And when we take a look at the equipment, I have selected a gun rammer, a turbocharger, and I have chosen to go for the improved configuration. And for the other option, depending on the map, I have selected instead of the turbocharger, binoculars, in those scenarios where I am absolutely forced to play in the back. Luckily, that doesn't happen very often. And for the ammunition, I have selected 8 AP shells, which each are capable of delivering an alpha damage of 750. And not only that, it also is capable of delivering an average penetration of 276, which is more than enough to actually never use gold rounds. Unfortunately, the shell velocity is not the best of 870, but it honestly doesn't feel as a major downside. And luckily, this tank comes with APCR rounds, and here I have selected 22 that each are capable of achieving that extra average penetration, which now totals 320. And not only that, you receive a nice shell velocity boost, which now totals 1088 meters per second. And you might be wondering, why would I ever use the APCR round? And actually, that is a very good question. And usually, the only reason for why I would use an APCR round is usually at the very end game when I really want to be certain that I penetrate, or if I am facing something extremely well armored. Because to be honest, the 276mm is more than enough. And I must say that I usually tend to have quite successful T95 games when I'm out of those 8 shells. So in hindsight, my loadout should more look like kind of this, with 18 AP shells and 12 APCR. And last we have some high explosives that each are capable of delivering 950 alpha damage, and that offers an average penetration of 90mm. It is not bad, but honestly I never use these high explosives because 276mm penetration is honestly enough to go through any tank that you can encounter. For the consumables, I've selected small repair kit, small first aid kit, and some premium food. And when we take a look at the field modification, I've chosen lightweight suspension for that extra 5% hull traverse speed, parallax adjustment for that extra reduction in the aiming circle size. And this particular choice has been motivated that I'm not always fully aimed. And that is of course due to I tend to play this tank quite aggressive right in the face of the enemy. If I was using this tank for sniping, then I would go for the aiming speed. But then again, if I wanted to use a tier 9 for sniping, I would choose something mobile that can easily reposition and change flanks when needed. And I have chosen the right angle periscope for that extra 2% view range, where again the concealment is not that important because I tend not to use this tank as a long range sniper. But the other thing is, when you get spotted, it's not really that supremely critical because this tank's armor is a bit special. And last, I have selected the ammo rack reconfiguration, which gives us minus 3% reload time. Okay, so we had the average damage of 750 together with the standard average penetration of 276, which offers us a rate of fire of 4.25, which translates to one shot every only 14.1 seconds, which is actually not bad at all. But of course, keep in mind that both the case of coal and the gun rammer addition is quite significant. Usually, without focusing on the reload speed, you will achieve a gun loading of around 17 seconds, which is not bad if you play to medium to long range. But personally, for the aggressive playstyle that I really like, then the 14.1 seconds is very nice. And of course, if you want to buff it even more, then I have found myself from time to time playing with a directive, since I have so many of them lying around, and in such case you will get that reload to 13.71 seconds, which many times, yes, will catch the enemy off guard. For the gun traverse speed, 28.96 and a gun depression of -5. It luckily doesn't harm us that much when utilizing an aggressive playstyle. The gun traverse limits are 10 degrees to the left and 11 to the right, which are definitely not the best, so it will rely on its track traverse quite a lot. Furthermore, it has an aiming time of 2.36 seconds, together with a gun dispersion of 0.33, which makes it quite a capable sniper when needed. And with this current aggressive setup, we're able to achieve a quite impressive average damage per minute of 3,283, which is not bad at all, taking everything in consideration. Of course, keep in mind that the gun rammer adds quite a lot, and we also get some extra bonuses from the field modification, the premium consumables, of course the directive, and the brothers in arms. But all in all, the possibility of achieving this high average damage per minute when playing it aggressively, it is really vital. And when taking a look at the HP pool, for this current setup we have 1790, and of course this tank is all about armor. So how does the armor look? 305mm in the front, 152mm in the sides, and 51 in the rear. So right off the bat, it looks very impressive. But of course, it has two gigantic cupolas. We are of course going to look at all of this in the armor profile rundown. The horsepower per ton for this Doom Turtle is only 9.5, and that's including the turbocharger. Furthermore, the turbocharger helps us achieving that top speed of 24 km/h and that extra 2 in reverse. But most importantly for me, what the turbocharger does, it increases severely the traverse speed. Yes, it is not stated here in the statistics, but there is a gigantic difference how agile it feels when traversing in comparison to without. And for the camera figures, we have 39.14% when stationary and 25% when moving. This is very impressive, and this is why this tank is fully capable of sniping from the back when needed. And when we take a look at the view range, we have 436 meters, and yes, we receive very small bonuses. And of course, if we are forced to use our long range setup where we have the binoculars fitted, then we are capable of achieving a very impressive 557 meters of view range. And you guys already have noticed the special bond equipment, the improved configuration. This thing is that, yes, this tank is extremely sluggish and capable of delivering a lot of pain, and it has 4 tracks. What is the enemy most likely going to do? They will go for your tracks. So for the bond equipment that delivers that 45% extra repair speed, it is quite significant, because if you look at the standard equipment, the modified configuration, it delivers 25%. So we are talking about nearly double of difference, which is quite significant. And of course, if you would like to have even faster track repair speed, you can of course always select the large repair kit, which will give you that extra 10% on top. And not only that, you can choose to go for the improved hardening, which will add that extra suspension durability and repair speed. But personally, because of this bond equipment, I have found this to be exactly enough for my current playstyle without having to use the premium repair kit. Okay guys, let's continue with the tank comparison. Okay guys, so here we have the tank comparison where we're going to compare the T95 against 5 other tank destroyers. And for this comparison, I have selected the Object 704, T30, WZ-111G FT, the Waffenträger auf Panzer IV, and the Tortoise. Of course, at this tier there's lots of various tank destroyer types, but at least what made it important for me to select these 5 tanks is of course the shared alpha damage of 750, but also to highlight the gameplay difference between, for example, a T95 and a Tortoise. Okay guys, so we are starting out of course with the DPM, where the T95 features 2459 damage per minute. And right off the bat, yes, that can of course be only one king, and it is not surprisingly, it is of course the Tortoise. But keep in mind guys that the main focus definitely will lie towards comparing against the other 750 alpha damage tanks, because here, yes, there is definitely a difference, and the Waffenträger takes the top spot, but it's not really by a mile. The T30 definitely falls behind with only 2142, because when looking at the damage output of 750, then despite that these tanks are sharing the same alpha damage, that they are really not sharing the same gameplay style, because it is very much different from each other, which will become more apparent as we're going through this comparison. So when looking at the penetration of 276, it is a fantastic standard penetration to have on a tank, because the amount of times that you are forced to use premium rounds is as close to 0 as it possibly can get, especially if you're fighting enemies at a very close range. The WZ-111G FT takes the top spot with the Object 704, where the bottom bottom spot is taken by the German Waffenträger auf Panzer IV, and the Tortoise not that far behind. And when taking a look at the shell velocity, 870, it is really not a lot, and especially for myself that really values high shell velocity, then this figure would in general be a complete no-go. But because I use primarily this tank in close up, then it honestly does not matter. And furthermore, and ironically enough, from long range, then because the reward of dealing that 750 alpha damage is so gigantic, then it honestly outweighs that little frustration. But of course, as you can see here, the shell velocity is nothing out of the ordinary, where 870 is actually some of the very best of the tanks that are capable of dealing that, yes, 750 alpha damage. But not surprisingly, the Tortoise takes the top spot. But what about if we change it to the premium rounds? Well, let's take a look. And keep in mind the T95, Object 704, the T30 and the Tortoise all uses APCR rounds as premium, where the WZ-111G FT and the Waffenträger of Panzer IV uses heat rounds. And this we directly see here in the shell velocity, and you can directly see which of these tanks uses heat rounds. And especially to notice is the German tank's 606 meters per second shell velocity. It feels like it would be faster to launch the shells through a catapult. Nevertheless, when we take a look at the penetration values, 320mm ironically places us at the bottom of the scale, but not by far though. But of course, the tank to notice here is the WZ-111G FT with 395mm of gold penetration. That is very impressive, guys. But keep in mind that these are heat shells. That means when you hit some Soviet spaced armor in particular, then your shells have a high risk of being absorbed. So personally, if I had to choose heat rounds of 395mm of pen together with a shell velocity of 760 versus fast APCR rounds with a shell penetration of 320, I will go with the APCR. And when we take a look at the gun handling, then yes, the Tortoise will be a bit different in this particular comparison because it is a very high rapid firing gun that excels whenever it's capable of penetrating the enemy shot after shot, but where the training capabilities are not the best. Therefore, one of the important factors of course here will be to compare it against the other 750 alpha damage tanks, and here the aiming time of 2.5 seconds doesn't look that much more different. And of course, do notice the Object 704 and T30 has a quite horrible aiming time. When taking a look at the dispersion value of 0.38, then yes, definitely not the best. But keep in mind guys, there's a lot of various bonuses we can put on top of the tank as you saw in the garage. But the final figure isn't that bad at all, of 0.33. And when taking a look at the hidden figures when moving or traversing your tank or turret, then the 0.17 is surprisingly placing us at the very top here in the comparison, even far superior to the Tortoise. And not only that, the T95 also features a quite impressive turret traverse of 0.08, which is not the best in this comparison, but it's not far from. Because these figures are in some way quite vital, even when you play it aggressive. It's simply because you are really relying on punishing the enemy tanks and making that 750 alpha damage count. And when taking a look at the gun depression, then the T95 features a gun depression of 5 degrees, which unfortunately places it at the very bottom. But then again, this tank has a quite unique armor profile, which will give you the opportunity to prioritize other aspects of the tank. And last, for the gun handling, we have the quite important gun traverse angles. Minus 10 degrees on the left and 11 degrees on the right. Yeah, that can definitely become challenging, and this is also why it is so vital, at least in my opinion, that you can provide this particular tank a good track traverse speed. But besides that, you can directly see here which tanks has a fully traversed turret and which one doesn't. Because yes, the T30 and the Waffenträger of Panzer IV definitely has a gigantic advantage in regards of this aspect, but this advantage does not come cheap, because as we directly can see here in the turret traverse of 0.24, then they also get penalized in regards of armor profile. And when take a look at the mobility, then yes, forward speed 20 km/h, not surprisingly, the Doom Turtle is definitely one of the slowest one here by far, together with the British Tortoise. And the situation is not very much different when looking at the reverse speed, 10 km/h. Yes, not surprisingly, slow and sluggish tanks. And this doesn't get better, because looking at the power to weight ratio, 8.89 horsepower per ton. Yeah, there can be only one that takes the top spot from the very bottom, and that is of course the T95, where all the other tanks seems ironically way faster. But of course, horsepower to ton is not everything, it's all about the terrain resistances. And when we take a look at the hard, medium and soft terrain, then values of 1.3, 1.4 and 2.3, where it's not absolute critical, it's really not helping us out. Values here are very typical for a heavy tank. It will make this tank more feel like it has approximately 6 horsepower. The turret traverse is not very important in my opinion, but what is super important is the tank traverse, because that traverse is going to help you, yes, using that turret traverse. And most importantly, you are going to get past that gun traverse limit that you have on the tank. The tank traverse of 24, it's not not very good, but because I really like to play this tank aggressive, then I really rely on that tank traverse. So I can highly recommend training both your crew skills towards increasing this particular skill, but also having that turbocharger to increase this value. Yes, it will not indicate that the tank traverse will be increased when you mount the turbocharger module onto your tank, but the difference is very significant. And to finish it off here for the mobility, the top spot is of course taken by the way more lighter Waffenträger of Panzer IV with its 36. But nevertheless, the power to weight ratio, the forward speed and the reverse speed can really give you a good indication of in what scenarios these tanks are best played. And this also gets more clear when you look at the armor and health, because for the T95 that is so extremely slow, then the 305mm frontal armor is just epic. And looking at this comparison, yeah, it is just the Tortoise that comes any close. And even when looking at the side armor of 152mm, then it is only shared with the Tortoise. And for the HP pool of 1800, it is actually not bad. Yes, tank destroyers are not really the most famous for having a high HP pool, but in this comparison, it is quite nice. And for last figure, we have the camo values when stationary or when moving. And yes, the T95, despite its gigantic size, but because of its quite low profile, it is actually taking the top spot. So this tank can surprisingly effectively be used as a long-range sniper. And for the last vital figure that matters is of course the view range, especially for tank destroyers that usually always gets punished with a low HP pool, tend to also get punished in regards of the view range. So the 380 for a tier 9 tank is not really amazing, but if you use this tank with a maxed out crew and premium consumables, and you play this tank up close and personal, then the view range is not really that extremely vital. And when you need that, then you can make dual setup where one of the setup is primary made for the sniper role when you are forced to take it. But enough of this tank comparison, guys. Let's take a look what maybe matters the most, the T95's armor. Let's take a look. Okay guys, so here we have the armor profile of the American T95 tank destroyer. And for this armor profile analyze, we're going to use its standard 276mm of penetrating AP rounds, and let's take a look how it looks in the live view. Yeah, and it directly becomes quite apparent where its strength is and where its weak spots are, because the whole armor itself, yes, 0.5% chance to penetrate it at this particular spot, and other places where it reaches a values of around 9.6%, it is definitely not much. And this is of course the same situation on the other side. And it doesn't get better for the opponent when looking at the gun mantle, because some of these values are quite extreme if you ask me. So all in all, the vast majority of the tank that you are going to showcase is going to provide you a very reliable armor. Yes, the tank of course is not invincible, and we can directly see it here in the lower part. We of course have those two cupolas. The one that is a bit further away can be a bit tricky to hit, so I tend to go of course for the one on the right side. But keep in mind guys that the effective armor is actually not bad, and if your shell slightly moves to the right or to the left, it will easily result in a ricochet. And in my opinion, it is way more reliable to actually go for its lower plate, because even if it's 252mm thick, you still stand at 85% chance to penetrate. When we take a look here at the visual view, you can see that this lower part here is only slightly angled, and yes, this cupola seems gigantic, and it's not very uncommon that people will primarily shoot for this part. But keep in mind that this cupola only seems to accept shells that are directly in the middle, because as we just saw, if you hit slightly here to the left, it will result in a ricochet, and the same to the right. So of course all depends on how much do you trust your gun precision, because this part here, at least for me, it seems way more reliable as long as you're not shooting it on the very top, but as close to the bottom as possible. Yes, you don't have a 100% chance, but at least personally for me, with my luck, I stand way better chances penetrated here. But of course, as this tank is a tier 9, then it's not very uncommon to meet tanks that will fire gold rounds at you. So how would this armor profile change if we switch to the 320mm APCR shells? Well, let's take a look. There we go. And yes, there's directly a gigantic difference to notice here, where suddenly the penetration chance skyrockets to around 70% chance. And for the lower plate, we are talking about a 95% chance to penetrate. And then of course you might be wondering, this doesn't seem very good. Well, first of all, remember that not every tank is using 320mm penetrating rounds. And second of all, there's very good chance that your shell, especially from mid to long range, might slightly fly to the right or to the left, where it will under no circumstances go through this effective armor of more than 2000. Because keep in mind guys that this tank is actually not showing a lot of its armor profile, because when we take a look at the visual view again, then the tank seems massive. But keep in mind that some of the places here, like for example this part here, is really not existing. And furthermore, the tracks are capable of absorbing a gigantic portion of whatever you are going to encounter. And you can see here that where this tank actually looks quite big on this view, and when we go back again to see in the live view, then suddenly you see that the sides here on the left and right just disappearing. And not only that, this tank of course should be moving as much left and right when reloading. And you can see here some of the values that you are capable to achieve even when firing those 320mm of penetrating rounds are definitely giving you a good chance to bounce a shot. Yes, of course, if you hit this particular spot here while the tank is moving left and right, you will go through, or of course if you hit the cupola. But what we suddenly see here is at this angle, which doesn't really look that extreme, then there are two things that happens. First of all, the lower plate when facing a 320mm penetrating round suddenly becomes extremely hard to penetrate. And not only that, if you then start to over angle this tank, you can quite effectively side scrape with this particular tank, because if a shot hits your tracks, it's definitely going to be absorbed. And the side armor values here are very impressive. It is first when you over angle this particular part, and this is highlighted here by the blue color, where you are still able to receive an effective armor of 280mm and more. And this is for a 320mm round. So the over angling part is quite significant. If we select the puny 276mm of penetrating rounds, then they will just as easily go through your side armor. But nevertheless, guys, check what happens with the whole armor profile with the slightest angle. And you can see here that if you're of course facing the enemy straight on, the lower plate armor is not really amazing, but you don't need to angle this very much to make it very challenging for the enemy to pen you. And you can see here, if you keep this tank wiggle left, right, back and forward, it will be quite easy for the enemy to suddenly make a shot too soon, which will result in that ricochet. So yes, the T95 of course doesn't have an unimpenetrable armor, but in my opinion, it is very rare that the enemy can reliably go through your armor. And this is also why this tank excels in a very aggressive push where you're stressing the enemy with that gigantic 750 alpha damage gun. And when we take a look at the side profile, then of course keep in mind, guys, that even at this angle here, you still stand a very high chance to bounce or actually absorb a lot of the rounds, because yes, these double tracks are quite effective. So even if you're unlucky to receive some side shots, you still actually stand a chance to bounce a few shells, especially at long range. The turret itself, besides the 140mm weak spot and the around 80 to 90mm upper side plate, then of course a frontal part of the tank, then even from this profile, then we have some insane armor figures. Then definitely do not aim for the very beginning of the tank, but shoot just anywhere in this location, where even the spaced armor is not really capable of giving us any advantage. And we directly see also similar scenario for the tracks at the very front. If they go through those two double tracks, then it will meet, yes, two other tracks. But besides that, the side armor is nothing special, 152mm in general, with a few exceptions of 192. And here I've selected the heat shell from the Waffenträger of Panzer IV that delivers 334mm penetrating rounds, and it will still go through like it was butter. And from the back, around 64mm, and we finish with values of around 50mm. So yeah, the T95's armor definitely, like any other tank, it has some weak spots, but even for the weak spots, it is still surprisingly rare that you are not going to bounce a single shot during a game. And some games, when you are top tier, it is amazing what beating this tank can take. But nevertheless, let's take a look at two very recent battles in the American T95 tank destroyer. Okay guys, so here we are in Himmelsdorf. I'm playing the American T95 tank destroyer. Unfortunately, we are bottom tier. But luckily for this particular tank is that it does not really care that much about being that low tier. This is one of the reasons for why I liked this tank in particular, because if I'm playing, let's say, a super heavy like the VK100, the German heavy tank, then it is all good as long as you are top tier. But suddenly if you encounter tier 9 or especially tier 10, your armor is completely rendered obsolete. This is a bit different in T95, but let's see if we can apply some pressure here. There's quite a lot of heavy tanks, I must say, in this game mode. Let's see. Preparing for my tank to be able to turn it quite fast. So, oh, there's one that's passing. It's a bit shame that that one bounced off the mouse. I actually thought that would pan. Okay, nevertheless, let's see if we can put in another round. That will be tricky on that, maybe on the low plate. Okay, the start right now, it is absolutely not good. We took a small beating from the guy from 500 health. We're down to 1300, and there is loads of enemies here. Okay, come on. I got tracked. Let's move. Okay, this should be doable. Yeah, 667 damage. Okay, at least we got some damage in. Got a bit rough start there. Okay, we bounced from the Jagdtiger. Taking quite a long turning circle in this one. Can we put that one in low plate? Yeah, 687. Okay, we bounced another shell. It's good, 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 good. It's getting a bit... Okay, the map... There's so many enemy heavies. I'm right now hoping for that they're not going to YOLO push, because we are definitely dead. Come on, come on. Can I put in? Come on, turn the hull, turn the hull. Yaddle. Nice. How much HP does it? 1 HP. Never know. Okay, good, good, good. My comrade took him out. Wants another shell. Okay, we got tracked again. Come on, come on. Wait for the tracks, wait for the tracks. Yeah, definitely. One of the things I can highly recommend is getting your track repair up one way or another. Okay, can we put another one? Okay, 777 damage. Beautiful. Let's pull back, let's pull back. Okay, we are blocked. 3,170 so far. 2,900 damage. No idea how this is... Well, okay, let's go, go, go. Okay, there we go, there we go. Can we put another one in? Beautiful. 674 health again. This is just amazing. The damage, the damage figures just gets counted so fast. Okay, we are soon ready again to fire. Come on, come on, come on. Can we put it? Yeah, another 672 damage. Just wrecking damage right now. And this is simply because the enemies, what they should actually have done is just push over and just overrun us completely. But because it's a random game, yeah, you know, everyone is like thinking, no, I'm not going to do it. Okay, still is... The danger is not over, the danger is not over at all. Let me see. I don't know what I'm doing. Come on, come on, that. Yeah, 711. Not bad, not bad, not bad. You can see that the enemy seems to have some respect for us. Now this is good because that buys us enough time. And keep in mind that the reload speed... keep in mind that the reload speed is not amazing, but it's enough. I have been trying out... Oh, I didn't meant to stop the guy there. Keep in mind that the... Just a second, just a second. Yeah. 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 Keep in mind that the reload speed is not amazing, but it is significantly better than those 17 seconds that you usually would get on the tank without a gun rammer. Especially, and... was maybe a bit too fast snapshot of... Okay, this is... Yeah, no comments. Back to those... back to the 17 seconds. So the difference between the 17 seconds and those 14.5 might not seem like a lot, but they definitely feel, especially when you take this tank up close and personal. Okay, what can we... can we put in one? Can we put WB? Oh, that guy turned his turret exactly. That was actually well played by the enemy. Okay, guys, there's a Jagdpanzer 100 there. There's a mouse. I don't like it that much. Okay, we have the I7 in our rear, so I'm thinking he should make it. Okay, if that guy, the I7 covers our flank there, it's all good, it's all good. But I still think that the other two guys we just said hello to, they're going to come over. 710, we're behind some HP. Can we put in that? Yeah. Okay, that was a lucky, that one. That was lucky. That was lucky. And see, we're quite thin in regarding of numbers, and there's 2 unknown for the enemies. The Convang Type 61, objects 277, actually no idea where it is, and I don't know what our I7 is doing. Okay, the Jagdpanzer 100 is coming for us. We have 6,459 damage and 5,000 block. 580 spotting, probably must be some tracking stuff. Okay. We are right now relying on the I7 to do his part. So I just need to focus on the Jagdpanzer 100. I'm a bit... Ooh. Also from the front. Yeah, I feel kinda... Okay, there's an object 277 on the back also. Okay, yeah, we are so dead, guys. We are so dead. Can I put in a last shell on the 277? Come on. I know the Jagdpanzer is in my... Yeah, even the snapshot, babe. I'm so dead. What to do? Okay, I definitely do not expect our team to have a chance on winning this one. It definitely got hectic on Himmelsdorf map. Yes, we could have stayed in the back slightly and shot from this angle here, but honestly, it is quite boring for me. So I really like to bring this one up personal, and there's not many tanks that can do it. The T95, yeah, it really can. Okay guys, let's take a look at another. Okay guys, so here we are on Lakeville. I'm playing together with Ash, also in his T95. Do notice I have fitted the directive for extra rate of fire. It's trying to improve one of my missions regarding the damage. Well, yeah, he is faster, man. Come on, yes, awesome. But besides that, keep in mind, guys, I have a dilemma here because I really want to go there with Ash on the 0 line, or towards the 9 line, or towards the city, and because I lost some vital speed. Let's see if I can put a shot into the ISU 152. So a little bit sluggish, yeah. Of course, the 2 line we are definitely not going to go. We could go on the 9 line, but there's enough of forces there. Ooh, can I put in a shot? Oh, that was spot on, that one. That was actually a bit lucky, as you guys saw. It was probably more than lucky. Anyway, it went in. So it's good. We absorbed the shot from the Super Conqueror. And as you saw, the angle there was not bad at all. Still have quite a nice chance, and at this range it becomes very tricky for the enemy to pen you reliably. Okay, so the plan is that I want to go through the mid line over here so we can provide at least that support. The city is quite small. Yeah, this is not the fastest tank, I must say. If it was on a different map, and whenever I'm playing, especially in a platoon with other T95s, then it's always like a good idea on being able to charge through a certain flank. I just see that for this particular game here, I might be able to deliver most pressure towards shooting towards the cap zone, because yeah, I don't know about can we put in a shot on that one? Come on. No! Can get a bit tricky. I could have gone for more the more view range part, but I think that's still the guys on the city can provide. But yeah, in regards of the previous topic, it is always like a small gamble plus minus regarding where you will be able to do the most good. At least I have a feeling of that I can do that. I need to, for improving my mission, need to do around 4,000 damage and kill a couple of mediums and heavies. And yeah, one off. Let's move. At least it's nice that at least there's something semi-fast on this tank. I'm talking, of course, about the radar fire. Okay, if this guy moves slightly more forward, let's see. Is this doable? You've been lucky with the other shot in the very start. Okay, one more. There we go. Yeah. Yeah, when the NG is with you, then doesn't matter. Nothing matters, to be honest. It's all about enjoying those amazing shots. Okay, anyway, we're on top of this hill. Okay, lighting. Hello. Yeah, 803. Guy seems to want to track us. Okay, we bounce another T95. Okay, come on, repair. Okay, let's go. Not bad by the WZ-111G. Thank you for whoever did that. Nice. Because from this range, we know that they have a lot of tanks there on the back that are firing on us, but I don't mind that much at this range, because it is so extremely hard to have any precise shots. So I'm still going to take the chance. We got what, 2,700 damage right now. Still need to. Can we put him on? Yeah. And do notice that I'm firing very often not fully aimed, and this is also one of the reasons for regarding of my choice of the field modification, which we saw in the garage. Of course, if I can, I want to be fully aimed, but I still see myself, usually because I primarily play this tank close up and personal, to fire before I'm fully aimed. In this particular game, the shells have definitely been nice towards us. Okay, 3,499 damage. It's so easy to rack up damage in this tank. And one of the ironic part is that because this tank is so slow and sluggish, it is not that hard to get reliable performance in this tank. Or in other words, it is very hard to get a bad game, or let's say maybe a supreme game. You are going to get reliably a certain level of performance. And it's really hard to get actually bad performance in this, because 3 shells is usually enough for 2,250 damage. You put in a 4th shell in during the game, yeah, and you already above those 4k, sorry, those 3k damage. So yeah, definitely now 4k damage. Okay, we just need one more kill and I'll be doing the mission. Let's see if I remember which tank what was even we killed. Okay, let's see. We need 3 kills, and come on. Yeah, thank you. 13-7. I know also I must not die in this particular mission, so I will let the enemy spot the T-34s. This is not the time to take some crazy chances. Nevertheless, guys, 4,999 damage. And that's the thing I like about this tank, guys. You can play it different ways. You can play it from the sniper, you can play it aggressive, you can play it in platoon. I can highly recommend using this tank for platoon gameplay. It is amazing. It's like 2 T95s. It feels like you just tripled your strength because of the amazing strength it has. There's no way we can reach that T30 before it's going to be destroyed by our comrades. Still want to try. Let's see. But yeah, T95, man, it is so easy to rack up the damage because your standard penetration is awesome. And yeah, just keep it mobile. Don't wait for the enemy. So, the T95, what do you think of it, and most importantly, is it worth grinding for? Well, it of course all comes down to your preferred playstyle, but at least for me, because this tank is so specialized towards being that extremely armored, even against premium rounds, then it makes this tank capable of playing it aggressive despite being so extremely slow. Yes, the T95 has surprisingly good camouflage rating despite its gigantic size due to its low profile, and yes, it can therefore be used quite effectively to snipe from the very back. But at least for me, what makes this tank truly special is that it has the capability of being played very aggressively. And not only that, the T95, in my humble opinion, is amazing in a platoon of 2 or 3, where pushing aggressively through a flank is not only more often than not devastating to the enemy team, but also loads of fun. In my opinion, if you're looking for a dedicated long-range tank destroyer, then yes, the T95 can definitely do its job, but it feels more like a shame to use this beast for such, because the gameplay experience that this tank is capable of delivering is truly unique. And furthermore, if you are after a long-range sniper, then I would be more inclined to recommend something mobile that can easily change its flanks, because this Doom Turtle definitely can't. So, how many facepalms would I give this American T95 Tech 3 tank destroyer? Well, it receives 4 facepalms. Despite being one of the most sluggish tanks on the battlefield, then the T95, in my humble opinion, is capable of consistently delivering a proper gameplay experience that is not going to cost you a lot of credits doing so. Its standard 276mm rounds are more than enough to penetrate nearly anything that you can encounter. Furthermore, the T95 is a fantastic tank to use in coordinated platoon battles, because even 2 of these Doom Turtles, when pushing a flank together, will more often than not be capable to change the game's outcome. One Doom Turtle is respected on the battlefield, and two of them feels like 3 times better, because then you not only gain the ability to cover each other's flanks way more effectively when needed, but also you can just clean up the enemy tanks one by one from the battlefield. The other thing that I want to highlight is that because this tank is so slow, then it is very hard to play this tank bad in my opinion. And in some way, this tank becomes very new player friendly tank to use, because your armor can work against all tiers. Yes, tier 10 will make it tougher, but it does not make it obsolete, which you very often see on other lower tier super heavy tanks. I'm often playing platoon games with my clanmates, and the funny part is that when someone picks the T95, then it is very common to see it directly being backed up by 1 or 2 other Doom Turtles. And if I was asked to select 10 different tanks in World of Tanks that most players should experience in this game that has something so unique and being that surprisingly fun, then yes, the T95 would definitely be one of them. So yes, the T95, especially when platooning, is really one of my favorite tanks that really can bring out that smile in me. Okay guys, let's finish up. I hope that this tank review was helpful towards your decision on whether you should grind for the Tech 3 T95 tank destroyer next time you have the chance. And thanks a lot for watching guys. This was my tank review number 44. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know what you think of the T95 Doom Turtle in the comments below. Did you pick one up, and what is your opinion of this tank? And as always, if you'd like to see more crazy content from my side, feel free to leave a like or even subscribe. It's a big thumbs up for me and I appreciate it a lot. Cheers guys, take care and see you next time.